I've learned that the best founders are always selling.
Welcome to the GTM Vault podcast, hosted by Rick Coletta. We uncover the strategies, the pivots, and the breakthroughs, turning startups into giants. Let's crack, open the vault, and find out how.
Today on GTM Vault, I'm joined by Ben Collins, co-founder and CEO of Woz, a YC company, an AI platform that enables anyone to build and scale a software business without writing a single line of code. We dive into how a team of AI agents can replace the need for a technical co-founder, what it takes to go from idea to market in days, not months, lessons from building AI-first companies in the post-ChatGPT era, the future of entrepreneurship when anyone can build a company from scratch. Whether you're a founder, operator, or investor, this is a front row look at how AI is removing the barriers to building and scaling products. So I want to get right into it. What was the aha moment that led to Woz, Ben?
You know what I see a lot? Companies with solid strategy, but terrible execution. They've got dashboards, reports, tools everywhere, but no one knows what to actually do next to scale their business. That's why I've been paying attention to what ZoomInfo is doing. They're not just a contact data company anymore. They built a full system of execution. They're calling it GTM Intelligence, and it actually works the list, writes the outreach, and triggers the play. No guesswork, no manual grind, just pipeline moving, predictable growth, strategy that actually delivers. Check it out at zoominfo.com.
Big question, diving right in. Well, really excited to be here, really excited to chat with you. The aha moment. Man, I think there's like many aha moments along the way, right? My co-founder and I known each other for a long time. We were kind of ideating in this space for many months, explored many different ideas. And I think you're kind of zigging and zagging, learning from every one of these ideas you explore and kind of like recalibrating. And eventually we kind of started with the idea that, hey, the way businesses are being built, at least many types of businesses, is changing with the use of kind of AI tooling that really accelerates and compresses different parts of the business building process. So what are the implications of that? Implications are, well, we can experiment with many businesses much faster. And so our first idea was, how could we launch many businesses at the same time in kind of like a studio model? And then eventually we started in kind of researching and archetyping what that tech stack might be to let us do that, to launch and scale many businesses at the same time. Over the course of a couple months, it just became apparent that the size of the opportunity in front of us was much larger than could be kind of captured in a portfolio of companies under one studio, and that it made a lot more sense to kind of open up the platform and allow anyone to build businesses on top of it. And so that was kind of the evolution that led us to launching Woz last year.
How did your time in VC and partnerships shape the way you approach to building this company?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's going to be even more important as we move forward. I think a lot of tools so far have seen massive adoption just because of the unique value they bring. There's a kind of a wow factor, like an aha moment for a user, right? We've existed in a pre-AI world before, especially let's give the example of like a non-technical person writing code, right? That's always kind of been a barrier for you. Now all of a sudden you have the kind of Cursor, Windsurf, Replit, Lovable tools like this come in. Oh my God, all of a sudden I just built a website. I just built a tool for my business. Like, that was mind blowing. And so there hasn't needed to be a lot of go-to-market or partnership thinking at those companies because they've just been like so propelled by the awe and amazement of the users. So I think we're very quickly entering an age where go-to-market partnerships, being really creative in inventing new business models and new ways of scaling are just going to kind of prove to be more and more valuable. And I'm definitely leaning on my kind of early career years working in venture capital, working in partnerships and growth to figure out how we at Woz can leverage our strengths and our comparative advantages and tie those with partners who we can complement. So yeah, I think that's going to be a really big part of the journey moving forward and something that'll help differentiate us.
Woz's positioning is bold: build and scale a software business without a technical co-founder. How do you deliver on that promise?
Yeah. Well, fortunately, we have a team of really experienced engineers who kind of, in a way, productize their expertise. And now with AI, we can kind of customize that expertise and allow anyone to really tap into it. So it's a lot. It's not that we have an incredible amount of technical expertise and experience. Our team has, combined, I want to say 10 decades of experience building and scaling products from 0 to 1, scaling them to, tens of thousands of users. So we've been there, we've looked around the corners and see the pitfalls that exist and the traps you run into. We're able to build that into our platform. And then by doing so, allow others to hopefully avoid them. So it's not that the expertise doesn't exist. It very, very, very much does. We're just now able to kind of productize that and embed it into our platform.
Walk us through how Woz's AI agents actually work in practice.
Yeah, I think agents is kind of a word that gets tossed around a lot to mean a lot of different things, but like in its nature, it's actually kind of a pretty simple thing in its truest form, right? You're connecting an LLM to a tool and allowing it to use a tool. So you can think of what the Woz platform is, it's kind of similar to how an engineering team and a product team work at any other company. There's people doing many, many different tasks, and then we basically combine that in a network. So there's a lot of agents that are doing design related tasks. There are agents that are doing coding related tasks. There are agents that are doing, quality assurance related tasks. And so you kind of just add on many, many layers of agents, many, many layers of LLMs using tools. You kind of chain those all together, and the outcome is a really, you're able to produce really high quality things purely with AI in a system that kind of looks quite similar to what a traditional company building a software product looks like.
How do you handle the handoff between automation and human decision making in the product?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's probably like the core question when it comes to the whole industry and the whole vertical of like AI generated code, right? We're still in the era where um, there is a last mile that needs to be filled, right? And so most of the tools that have seen the most adoption so far, we'll think about like a Cursor or a Windsurf, or they're intended for developers because developers can close that last mile, right? If the AI can generate a 80% version, well, then the developer can come in and close that last 20%. And so that's kind of the trick. That's the core question that kind of faces itself to every company building in an AI code related space is how do you close that last mile? So you either allow developers to close that last mile, or you build sufficient engineering tooling kind of around your product to either close as much of that last mile as you can and then like fingers crossed it's good enough, or you plug in a human to do some level of quality assurance. We've seen some really interesting and unfortunate kind of situations occur on Twitter, LinkedIn, where non-technical people use these tools that do the 80%. They try to do the last 20%. They're lacking kind of the knowledge and expertise to do it, and then their tool gets hacked, personal information is exposed. It's really not a good situation, right? So what we do at Woz is we always have a human layer of quality of verification at the end before anything gets published. We just think that's the responsible thing to do, and we can kind of sign our name next to the quality of products that are built on Woz because we require that level of human verification at the end.
What's the hardest technical or product challenge you've faced so far?
Yeah, that's a great question. Man, there's many, many difficult product and engineering challenges that have arisen. And I think, it's like, why is that the case? I think the answer is that this technology is just emerging and evolving very quickly. So the ecosystem of kind of like infrastructure players and like tooling players that exist in more mature businesses. Like think of you're just like building something on the internet, or you're building like some piece of SaaS. All the tooling and the ecosystem around this already exists, right? So you can kind of tap into those existing providers and put something together. In this era of like AI software building, that ecosystem is now just coming together, right? So the hardest part is picking the right vendors to use for different parts of your stack, And then the challenges occur when you are developing ahead of where all the other vendors are, right? Your capabilities are far beyond what they're able to help you with. And so the challenges arise when, you need to make a decision. Okay, do we kind of wait for this ecosystem to catch up to us? Do we invest in building more proprietary technology to kind of layer on top of the existing vendors and the existing ecosystem of technology providers?
Who's the ideal Woz user today? Is it non-technical founders, small teams, or even enterprise innovation teams?
Yeah, I think in the future, I hope everybody. Right now, it's solopreneurs. So you can think health coaches, doctors, consultants, personal trainers. It's largely people who are running services businesses and want to layer on an element of kind of AI and productization so that they can scale beyond kind of one-to-one sessions with a client.
Have you seen any surprising use cases emerge that you didn't expect?
Tons, man. I'm always so impressed by people's creativity and entrepreneurial spirit. So I think there's tons of examples where I've been just like blown away by human creativity. I think what's been most interesting to us is actually kind of the inbound enterprise engagement or interest we get from, big established companies who, probably just like aren't IT companies in general, right? They don't necessarily have the internal expertise or bandwidth to want to kind of build things themselves. So that's been actually the most exciting and surprising, has been kind of the inbound interest from the enterprise level.
How do you ensure users not only build something, but also find a market and scale it?
Yeah, look, that's an area where we intend to help out as much as we can. We can help people reach their customers by leveraging our brand and leveraging like the playbooks that we've built. But I think that's kind of our whole vision for what the future of AI enabled entrepreneurship looks like, is that ability to find your customers, to build a brand. That's really what's differentiating. And I think that's still the responsibility of the entrepreneur. So that's how entrepreneurs can differentiate in this new era for sure.
Woz is itself a GTM playbook in a box. How do you approach your own GTM?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, I probably won't share all of our secrets and plans here, but I think we can lean on some examples from past companies that have built kind of like platforms with verticalized solutions on top of the platform. You can think of something like, I think Shopify is kind of the best example in what they built for e-commerce in the age of the internet. But figuring out what those verticals are, I think that's probably the biggest key decision in the go-to-market. What are the right verticals to build on top of our massively enabling kind of horizontal platform? And then how do we incentivize an ecosystem to help us build those verticals?
What lessons have you learned from launching and scaling an AI product in a crowded space?
Yeah, you have to move incredibly quickly, and you always have to be reassessing your hypotheses, right? I've never been a part of a technology landscape that's moving so quickly. I don't think, maybe there's never been one that's existed. And you always have to be reassessing, collecting new data, and adjusting course. I think that's probably the fundamental thing that is different about building this company than building any of the previous companies I've been involved with.
How do you think AI native companies will differ in their GTM compared to traditionals?
Yeah, look, AI, it's massively deflationary across the board. So you do need to redefine what your go-to-market is, right? The economics, I think, of, going to market with a big sales team won't necessarily work out for many AI first companies. So yeah, there needs to be a total redefinition of what that go-to-market playbook looks like. I think we're seeing a lot of companies already start to try to redefine that in terms of building a brand first and then figuring out what products to build. That's one angle that has been largely explored. But even in the last 6 months, we've seen kind of an evolution of like what works and what doesn't work. And when one thing works, it's almost like there's a whole herd of fast followers who replicate it. and then it's no longer interesting and it no longer works. So then you got to come up with your next go-to-market hack or trick. Yeah, incredibly competitive, and people are incredibly creative when it comes to putting together these go-to-market hacks.
How close are we to fully autonomous company creation?
You could build something very simple that's fully autonomous today. Will it be will it be highly successful and will it be useful to many people? I mean, probably not, right? I think if you ask an AI to spit out some version of a product or company today, it will basically take the average of what it's learned across all the data it's trained on. So essentially the internet, right? And it'll spit out like the average of that. Now, what really makes these businesses unique is what kind of unique insights you add as a human. And so for an AI to do that, it kind of needs access to data that isn't necessarily on the internet. So I think, look, will there be certain use cases you where there's some corpus of data that isn't on the internet and you use an AI on that data to then prompt AI to create products and software around that, like unique ideas? Maybe, but I think for anyone to build a kind of unique, differentiated business, there's going to be human involvement for a long time.
And what do you think this means for VCs, accelerators, and startup ecosystems?
We're seeing kind of a new dynamic come out in the venture landscape for sure, right? Funds are dumping huge amounts of money into these kind of like, we'll call them like early winners in the AI space. And like we're seeing companies raise, 3 or 4 rounds in a span of six to 9 months, which is kind of unheard of before. So yeah, we're seeing a concentration of capital to the largest kind of, or concentration of deals going to like these large multi-stage funds. At the other end of the spectrum, you have kind of YC dumping, investment into a couple hundred startups a year. And the nice part of that is that using AI tooling, we're in a period where you can kind of get to profitability and growth without needing that much capital. So I think there's probably going to be like a barbell effect where you have a lot of companies that raise very little money and grow and become, profitable, decent sized companies. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have these kind of just massive, we're calling like anointed winners who are raising hundreds of millions, billions of dollars from these, large multi-stage funds. And I think we're just going to continue to see that dynamic play out even more.
We're talking in 2030. What does Woz look like?
I think Woz is going to be of its hands in a lot of different products, touching a lot of different companies. So I think this model is going to be really partnership heavy. And I hope that we can help amplify many, many established players in growing their business and also help bring into the entrepreneurial world many people who've been left out in the past. Yeah, our ambition is big, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but there's never been a better time to do it.
Segue over to the rapid fire section of our podcast. First business you ever started?
First business I ever started. Yeah, this is awesome. I have a lot of cousins and we grew up together on the East Coast and we would spend the summers together. And so I'm the oldest of all my cousins. And so what I would do is on recycling and trash day, I would borrow my dad's pickup truck and put like 3 or 4 of my cousins in the back of the pickup truck. And then they would go collect bottles and cans, throw them in the back of the truck. And then I would go return them, and then give my younger cousins a couple bucks. But yeah, that was a pretty great business when you've got cheap labor working for you. So.
One GTM channel you double down on right now if you only had 10K?
I think YouTube right now is a really strong channel for multiple reasons. If you kind of have a knack for creating content, I'm seeing really, really strong results from YouTube.
Biggest AI tool you personally can't live without other than Woz?
I mean, I think probably for most consumers, it's ChatGPT. And for me, I'm on it, probably multiple hours a day, using it as a thought partner and or kind of research agent almost all the time. But yeah.
One overhyped AI trend founders should ignore.
There's so much AI generated content. I think founders should avoid really leaning into the AI generated content for kind of LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. It's at a point where it's kind of very obvious what's AI generated and what's not, or that may or may not be true, but much content much of the content I see is obviously AI generated. Like maybe there's some really good stuff that I'm not picking up on. And for me, I just feel like that detracts from the brand. And so I try to lean away from that.
A founder you think is building something underrated in
Ugh. I mean, there are so many. I mean, I was kind of amazed by the quality of our peers in our YC batch last winter. Um, the thing is, it just takes time for them to emerge, right? It takes time for all the big winners to emerge. I would say that like founders who are going after kind of these old sleepy industries and just building AI first companies for a sleepy industry, whether it's in real estate or insurance or back office, medical, etc. I feel like those are kind of gonna be home runs. It was just the right play at the right time, and I think if they can execute, those will be great businesses.
one book, podcast, or resource that's influenced your GTM thinking?
Man, I'm a huge consumer of podcasts. So I don't know if there's one in particular, but I love kind of stealing lessons and snippets from as many as possible. Learning about, I love the Acquired podcast and learning about kind of the sometimes non-intuitive way these iconic companies have been built. And I think oftentimes those lessons like really push me to think more creatively about go-to-market. I also love the Bill Gurley and Brad Gerstner podcast. It's about less about go to market, more about thinking about the kind of market holistically, and what that means for our business at Woz and kind of what lessons we can glean from the AI players that have gotten out fast, and have been kind of anointed winners. So yeah, I think you take a little bit. I don't know. What's your favorite book or go to market podcast?
I recently started reading, you all know Harari's new book, Nexus,
Okay.
about like the history of communication and how storytelling evolved from clay tablets to a religion, one of the earliest vehicles that was used to kind of get people aligned and have a common story that they can share, helping me better understand the power of storytelling by getting a better understanding of the history of how it emerged.
Maybe I'll have to look at that one. Awesome. Thanks for the recommendation.
Why is Woz's mascot a wizard?
Awesome. I'm glad you asked that. Yeah, there's two parts to it. One is that we think the experience of using Woz should be a bit magical. And so we wanted to convey that. And at the same time, I think a lot of what we're doing is imparting kind of decades of experience and expertise and wisdom into our system. And so we want our users to be able to have a magical experience, but at the same time, feel like they can trust in the guidance that they are receiving and that it'll be guiding their business towards success.
In one sentence, the future of building companies is?
Never been brighter. Man, there's so much opportunity, and I think there's never been a better time to build a business.
Ben, this has been a masterclass on building businesses with AI. You can learn more about Ben's work and try Woz for yourself at withwoz.com. If you enjoyed this conversation, subscribe to GTM Vault on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube for more deep dives with the builders shaping the future of go-to-market.
Thanks, Rick.
Tech founders and VCs, careers, lessons, GTM.